Welcome everybody to the next edition of the Stay on Course podcast. Today, I have Kyle Hudson, and he is the founder and CEO of Stacklist, the social curation network helping service professionals turn local knowledge into shareable, AI discoverable hubs. He has built digital solutions for brands like Google, Disney, and Coca-Cola. And now he's focused on helping experts own their client relationships instead of renting attention from platforms. So, in this conversation, we're going to explore how curating what matters, not posting more content, is becoming the future of trust, discovery, and influence in an AI driven world. Welcome, Kyle, to the Stay on Course podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Well, Kyle, before I get started, I ask all of my guests, what is your favorite food?
This is gonna be a little vanilla, but burger is my default. I'm a burger hunter, burger connoisseur. Like everywhere I go, like trying to find the right consistency and the right flavor, and I would have to default to burger.
Okay, what's your favorite burger place right now?
I would have to say there is a place here in Atlanta that has had one of the best burgers that I've had. Actually, Marcel is great. And it's just one of those that sort of stands out, you know, when you've had hundreds of burgers in different places and then you have one and one just sort of jumps to the top of the
Okay,
pack
well,
and is like, all right, this is the thing.
that's a serious burger then.
It
All
is.
right. Well, everyone loves a good burger. Do you like fries with it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I need fries and I do like I like shoestring. I also ever since I was in elementary school, I dipped them in mustard. Some kid was doing it next to me and I've done it ever since then. So that's another little peccadillo, I guess.
All right. Well, to each his own. I guess I'll try it. I'm into ketchup, but let's get right into it, Kyle. I know you have been an entrepreneur for quite some time and you've solved a lot of problems for entrepreneurs. Tell us a little bit about the journey you've taken and, this idea of fragmentation and bringing it into a curated form.
Yeah, it's funny. I think I've at a sort of macro level, ever since I was a kid, someone would ask me, you know, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I was like, oh, I want to be a detective and an inventor and a sniper and like I would like list off like this whole list of things. And I think it sort of plays into my personality that I love, not as a generalist, but I just love exploring lots of different sort of things. And then what
Mm.
I end up finding is that my passions end up lying in the triangulation of all of those things in different ways. And Stacklist is one of those, which is when you as a not as a business or not as a service or but just as a human you curate yourself, and if you even look around, if you're listening to this in the car or at your desk, or if you just look around, there's all these little choices you make about the things you've got on your desk, and your favorite products and services, your favorite locations, your favorite burger joint, but all that sort of just lives in our head, and there's not
Yeah.
really a good place to organize and share that stuff. So that's what we're working on.
Yeah, like when you were saying that I had to pull this out, right? I just bought this the other day, this notebook because I couldn't take it anymore. All this swirling stuff in my head.
Yep.
So there's like these tabs here, and this is me as a small business owner. It's not like me as a student, right?
Right.
It's what are my to-dos, my sales, my contents, my meetings. Like there's so many things. I have a personal to-do list. I have a regular to-do list. And now I have like multiple projects that I'm working on, and it really becomes a chore to keep it all together.
Yep. No, I agree. And I actually just started working this weekend on a little side project. We have kind of my co-founder and I have a little lab off to the side of our company where we sort of, when we get an idea, I get like I'm having coffee one morning and I get sort of a wild hair. I just start building something, and I started building a little personal agent named Rue. And you can actually sort of see it at withrue.com. But literally the idea that like I have Todoist and I have Notion and I have Slack and like I have all these things that are supposed to set up and organize me, but really what and Superhuman for my mail,
It's
really
too
what I
much.
have is just a huge backlog of things that I'm supposed to look at. And so the idea that you could dump it all in one place and then have this this little agent with a personality go, how can I help you? And you're like, I have 10 minutes. I'm a little overwhelmed, but I have 10 minutes. What should I work on? And to have all the context and prioritization that this little agent could go, hey, why don't you do this and knock it out? It's really quick. And you're like, yeah, I could do that. And you're not looking at all of those things with all the big buckets of stuff you have to do. You're having something help you just look at what's achievable and what's prioritized for like right this second. So I'm always
Amazing.
thinking about how to like solve that stuff.
Yeah, and as you begin to solve all these things, we have AI. I think one of the next things you should solve, Kyle, is, and I know you've solved a lot of problems, is like right now, I'm paying like $2,000 a month in subscriptions to run my business. I'm
Yep,
tired. I'm
totally.
tired of it. Like,
Yep.
there's no reason I should be paying $2,000 a month to run my business. Like, I mean, maybe, but maybe not. Maybe not. I'm paying for too many things right now. So, can you come up with a solution that will like consolidate that to $1,000 a month?
Right. Yeah, no, I'm actually we're doing that for ourselves. We went through a period where we actually did in December when we sort of as we were coming down and looking, reflecting off the year, I went through and culled probably 70% of all our subscriptions and pulled us down to a very lightweight sort of stack. And then we're actually working with things like Claude Code to build individual agents that can handle some of the stuff. So I may have a platform that handles, let's say, financial projections. Well, you know what I can do? I actually downloaded all the data from my financial projections. I put it into a Claude model and I started asking it, what if I did this? And what if I did that? And what if I did this? And it gave me a 17-page report of like my models. And now I'm like, oh, I could just have this little thing running on my computer where I just talk to it and be like, let's do that. Let's try this. No, what if we did this? What if we did that? And it just does it. And now I'm not spending time in a very specific tool with specific sort of interfaces. So I think we're headed towards that realm where you can start a lot more chat and voice, and you can just kind of talk through it like you would with a coworker, but it has all that knowledge, and you don't have to have all the tools.
Yeah, I think this is like something that I'm thinking about. Well, now all of these new AI tools have popped up, right? You have one for video, one for music, one for shorts, one for this, one for that. CapCut. There's like 17 different versions of CapCut now. Opus clips, this clip, that clip. So like, how do you know which one to use and how many do you really need? I thought that maybe ChatGPT would pull some of this into it, but not
I
really.
think you've got ChatGPT is the generalist. Like
Yeah.
ChatGPT will always have things that they're exploring and they're trying, but then you have all of these things like Opus Clip, which is the specialist, and the specialist is always going to outperform. But look, I think it's the most important skill to sort of put in your tool belt. I remember coming up through agencies and being the one who's like, we're going to try Trello. No, actually, we're going to try Monday.com or we're going to try Asana. And the teams I work with are like, oh my gosh, I've got tool overload. But I think you actually have to be open to trying a bunch of different stuff and seeing when that thing jumps from like, version 1 to version 10 really quickly. And this could fundamentally make a big difference. But you have to be open to making those jumps and sort of not have that like, oh, well, I've already climbed this high on the mountain. There's no way I'm backing off of Monday.com. I think you actually make the big strides when you're like, I'm willing to scrap Monday on a Monday and just like switch to ClickUp. Because all of a sudden you don't, there may be a platform that has made such big strides that you could find 50% efficiency if you're willing to sort of do it. So I love testing and trying all that
What do you
stuff.
love? Okay, so can you just give us your hot take on which
Mhm.
one you love between Monday, Trello, like for project management and operations? What do you like?
We actually, for myself, I have two things. I have Linear, which is great because it's like instead of using Jira, I'm not really a fan of like the whole sort of Atlassian and Jira, and it feels like a really big Microsofty kind of overhead. Linear is this like really elegant, simple. When you open a new task that needs to be done, it says title and notes. And that's kind of it. And like it just feels really clean. Onboarding new people is easy. But what's great is they actually have this whole system where you can very easily integrate it with, like, say, your Claude and be like, hey, we just made a plan of what needs to happen. Go make a bunch of tickets. And it does it. And so you can start to have some of that automated and then come back to that little not an app, that little sort of agent or little workflow and say, look at everything and break it up into 1 week chunks, and it would just do it. And so now you start to get into that place where you're just chatting with a thing that knows what you're trying to accomplish and helps you do it versus let me take so much time to configure this massive thing, and then I need to bring a bunch of people on to manage it and run it, and specialists that know the tool and and all that. And so I'm trying to get it to a place where, you know, what you really want to do is get the infrastructure for automation going. And if you decided to get rid of tool X and move to tool Y, your sort of, I don't know, operational agent can go, cool, I'll read the documentation. We'll start using the new tool. Like that's where you want to get into the efficiency that you're not like, yeah, but I have 3 team members that are specialized in tool X. I could never leave tool X. That's where I think you end up like both becoming stagnant in your innovation and your
Oh, that's
efficiency,
interesting.
and so like I'm always willing to basically scrap almost anything and just like switch to something else to try it and see if it ends up becoming the thing that gives us more
So,
efficiency.
okay, then when what you're saying is then what's the anchor then of the way you're running your business? Is it Claude then? Is it the agent?
No, I would say Slack and Zoom, I think for us is the anchor in the sense that like Slack right now being the best, easiest way to sort of organize conversation, automation, those sort of things for us. And then that becomes the point in which also, whether you're using a Trello or a Linear, that the agents can communicate within Slack and say, "Hey, Martina, Kyle's got a new thing he wants to do. Are you okay if we do this?" And it becomes the place where things can kind of happen if you set up Slack in a good way. But I think it also comes down to having really a good fundamental nature of how to run distributed teams, which can't just be Zoom meetings. It's also just got to be hangouts to be like, what'd you do this weekend? And find good ways to sort of manage a team that is also flexible in their tools. Hey, we're going to try this thing. And they're like, okay, let's do it. They're not like, oh man, I already got my workflow set. And creating that sort of flexibility and fluidity in the teams, that actually is the best thing because then you can optimize yourself all the time without sort of a lot of bumps and pushback.
I love that we're talking about this because when we talk about ingredients for success in managing all of these tools, this innovation, like we have so much opportunity now. What do you think are some of the ingredients to kind of determine what to use and how to use it?
I think everybody has to be fluid and open and have an experimental mindset. I think both the CEO and the CMO and the COO, like everybody who's doing it, you hear about a thing. So there's a thing that comes out and it's like, oh, what is this? Be willing to, on a Sunday, grab coffee and sit down and sign up for an account and mess with it a little bit and just dig beneath the surface and see if you can understand like where would this help us? Could this replace something? And have that experimental mindset because it's now, I think, specialty is really hard when it's like you're just pushing yourself as the one person that knows Basecamp better than anyone else. That can be good, but also I mean, there may be something that comes along and Basecamp gets eaten up and it's something else. Well, now if you've lost your specialty and you're not the one who goes, oh, I've learned the systems of how most all of them work. And what I know is how to sort of bounce from one to the other and use the best
Mm.
of some of these things. That Swiss Army knife becomes now invaluable when things are changing so fast. So what you
Yes.
want is we all need to sort of have that Swiss Army knife and not the like, oh man, I spent so long learning Slack. I'd hate to move to something else. It's like just be open to the fact that things are gonna change.
Yeah, I love that. And now just like putting that into context because a lot of us entrepreneurs are Swiss Army knives, right? Because we're able to do marketing, we're able to do operations, we're able to do finance, we're able to do, we are sitting in a place of multiple hats. And just like a Swiss Army knife, a unicorn, whatever you want to call us, that's what we are. And now with the advent of AI, we are 10 times more powerful than we were before.
I heard a
It,
great word that somebody used in the past that I love. I sort of have stolen it, is omnipotentialite.
whoa.
Which is this idea that like you are not X, you have the potential to be X, Y, Z, and A, B, C, and that like you
Yeah,
sort of love the idea of trying these different things. And because of that, I entrepreneurship, fits me like a well-fitting suit because yes, I explored podcasting and I also explored improv and I explored sales and I explored product management and program management and project management and I went to
because of,
coding boot
yeah.
camps, but I never wanted to be a coder. Like because I did that now, whenever something comes at me, I go, "Oh, remember that time I like played with the thing? Oh, I can just like kind
Yeah.
of keep going." And so that's where that experimentation comes
I
in.
love this. I love this because, here's the thing. There's people listening here that are starting businesses. There are people here that are still in corporate jobs thinking about entrepreneurship, right? And, if you're sitting there listening right now and you're in a corporate job and you don't feel like you fit in, this is the reason why. Because
You're great. Don't be bummed about it. You're great. Like just keep going with your being the different, purple unicorn because it is one of those things that like I promise if you keep searching for it, you'll find your slot.
It's hard. It's hard because I spent a lot of years working in corporate America and every time I would go into a new department, I'd be like, okay, what can I fix? What can I change? What can I innovate? And not everybody liked me because of that reason.
No, yeah, it's the
But
difference between a rock star or a specialist and then being like a shooting star. That whole thing of you come in and you go, I can take this all apart. And everyone above goes, please don't take it apart. Like, we
right.
please don't do that.
And the thing is, it's like, it's like so frustrating because they do want part of them wants that person in that role, but then there's so much resistance that comes with that, right? So the idea that is that you want to change, and maybe things have changed a little bit now in the corporate space because of AI. Now we've had to like break down a lot of barriers, and I think that people there are probably still hitting their head against the wall because we need to change so fast. Like you said, we don't need to be specialists anymore. And that's
Yep.
a whole new way of thinking. We need to be on the generalist side because now we have a partner called AI, called agents. And now we are superhuman. That's what I think about us now. We have the superhuman ability to have the collective knowledge of everything. And now we just need to ask it the right questions, create the right scenarios, come up with the right ideas. And now all of a sudden, we have something new that we didn't see before.
Yep. No, totally. And I think that having that perspective is fundamental. I almost suspect though, I feel like I am what I consider the Nintendo generation. So I was born in 79 and like I remember I had two Atari 2600s. I think I probably broke the first one. But then, I just lived in the Mario Zelda world, and then on to Sega and all these sort of things. And there's something different about growing up with the Atari 2600 forward. Like typically, if you grew up previous to that in your sort of childhood, it was a novel thing that came out that was interesting to watch. But I think with the generations that came where Atari, I was like 8 and or around that era, like 6, 7, 8. And I remember playing Tank and Pac-Man with my dad on Atari 2600. This was as native to me as a refrigerator, right? So I didn't find it novel. It was just how it was. And I think that generation, as we come into leadership and making decisions and things like that, it wasn't a novel thing that was like, oh my gosh, all these new things. It was like, yep, I mean, new systems came out, new computers came out. We tried it, CompuServe, AOL. Like there was just more to
Yeah.
sort of try out, and I think that's where we're sort of, from a business perspective, you have more and more of that sort of generation coming into the creation ownership generation.
Yeah. Are you a millennial or a Gen X? Are you at the end? Where are you on the
I don't
spectrum there?
remember I don't remember all
Okay.
the, it's like me forgetting at times that I'm an Aries, but I was 79.
Yeah,
So,
79. So, well, you're a little bit younger than me, like yeah, like 6, 7 years younger than me. So I
I'm
was born.
VH1 and MTV all
Yeah.
day
But
long,
I
like
was born
growing.
in 73. Okay.
Okay.
So I was born
Yeah.
in 73. But what the thing for me was, and I had Nintendo in my room when I was growing up. I had Nintendo, I had Mario Brothers. I had we played Kid Icarus. I don't know, was that
Oh yeah,
sorry?
it's hard, but it's so good. It's
Yeah,
like Metroid, hard.
we played Kid Icarus. And then when I was 19, I was in college. Okay, so I started college in 91, 92. And so right around 93, I had a computer in my dorm room. So when I
Hmm.
was in college, I had a computer, whereas some people my age didn't have that, right? There's
Yeah.
like this, it's so weird because I'm like right on the cusp of that thing where I always had a computer.
Right.
There was never, 19 that is young enough, right, to be
Yep.
able to have that. That was like 30 years ago, right?
Right.
And so like there are some people in my world that are like, what is that? Like, how do you use that? But in college, I was editing audio in college.
Yeah.
Like
No,
I
totally.
I was a DJ on the radio in college. So when all this stuff came out with social media and podcasting, it was like, oh, I'm gonna start a podcast. That's so easy, you know?
Yeah. That
And
framing is so different from, I think my example would be, I remember the first time I ever saw email and it clicked. It was, and I was, pre high school or whatever. And I just, this idea that you could send a message, and I ran downstairs and I told my mom, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's this thing and you can like write a message to someone in Japan and they get it instantly and it's for free. And she's like, you just sit down for dinner. Like she was just like, whatever. I don't really know what this is. And then of course you fast forward like, 30 years later and she's like, I can't get into my Gmail, and it's just like, but it's so different when you have those perspectives. And I think that's what's interesting is to see how where we're at coming into this generation, who sort of had that like technology is this thing that I have to learn versus like, who's more native to being open to trying
I
everything.
think that's the differentiator because, it's so funny. I'll tell you this quick story. My husband, I've been trying to get him to learn how to edit podcasts for years. I'm like, can you just learn? Like everyone can learn this. It's not it's a brain surgery. It's like editing a podcast. And like sitting down with him time after time, and him just not wanting to do it or not
Right.
getting it, right? I go to talk to my daughter. I'm like, listen, I need help. I need you to help me edit my podcast. I'm talking to her for 15 minutes, literally 15 minutes. And she
Yep.
goes, Mom, are you kidding me? You have to teach me how to do this. Like, I already know how to do it. Go. I'll do it for you. I'm like, what? Like,
Yep.
I literally spent 15. She's like, Mom, I've been doing this since like the fourth grade. I don't know what you're trying to do with me here. Like
Yeah.
that. Like, and
It's it's a different mental model from I think and my wife and I went through this also where we had a web design development agency on our own for a couple of years, and before that she had never really Gmail, PowerPoint, sort of standard college stuff, but she had never really gotten into anything about like design development. And she was really nervous. But once we started learning that basically everything was available on Google as long as you went down the path without feeling like, I feel like a fraud and I don't know this or whatever, as soon as she turned that corner, we actually got to a place where she was leading developers and doing design in Figma for like huge sites and all these sort of things. And once you get that model of like everything is available, and you just dive into it with like without feeling like, I have to get a certification, I have to go classes to do this. You
yeah.
just sort of go into the fray and actually like do it wrong and break it a lot. Once you get into that model, you actually start learning so fast, and you can pick up anything.
That's right. And it's the curiosity. So the ingredient for success here really is curiosity. Like curiosity
Yep.
and kind of and this is there's two types of thinkers out there. We take in information by, in process order, or we kind of take it in from all different ways. And so I'm a Myers-Briggs assessment kind of person. So
Hmm.
I think about like the intuitive person, the person who takes in information by the big picture, or the other person who takes it in by detail. And
Mm.
so a lot of entrepreneurs, CEOs are big picture thinkers, right? We
Hmm.
don't think linearly. Like we have a problem with that. Like so recently I had somebody develop something for me and he's like, just watch the video and do it. Watch the video and do it. And I'm like, you don't understand. Like my brain doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
And like he kept, and I hit a wall with him because he's
Hmm.
like, watch the video and then talk to me. And I'm like, I don't really watch videos. So I'm
Yeah,
still like,
yeah.
I'm trying to figure out how to work
How
with
you
this.
process.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
And
I'm a learn by doing. I don't know if there's a Myers-Briggs for this, but I jump off the cliff and then as I'm falling on, I'm like, I'm learning. Like I just like that's how I do it. I take the car apart and then I'm like, I don't even know if I could put it back together, but you know what? I learned a whole lot in this process.
I'm
Like that's how I do
learning.
it.
I just had a
Yeah,
visual of you like falling.
that's me.
I'm
I basically jumped off
learning.
with Stacklist and I was just like, I'm gonna figure out how to do this. And I've been falling every like that's just kind of it. I'm definitely not one to stand up and like on the cliff and go, okay, so let's see, what are the possible outcome? I'm just like, goodbye, you know. And
Yeah.
so and I think in doing that, it does help you also tune your voice, yeah, tune your ability to listen to kind of your voice about like when to stop pushing down a path or you have to if you do it this way you kind of have to be really good at listening to your inner voice about like when to pivot when to
Yeah.
make changes and so
It
I
really
appreciate that part.
I love the visual of you falling and saying I'm learning. I think you should have that in as a meme or something.
I will. I'll see if I can put a jiffy in Slack of me just like, just loving
Yeah.
falling towards whatever it is that's at the bottom.
Yeah. I think that's super important. And I think it's something that we should like acknowledge, right? There is different ways of processing. And so some people are going to be listening to this and be like, I hate those people that, can't follow instructions. I cannot follow instructions. Like I'm so bad at it. If you give me like 17 line items to do, I'm like,
Right.
I'm just going to figure it out myself. Like I can't read your instructions and then you know what I mean? Like
Yep.
I feel like at this point in the game, I should be able to just like open up a tool and be able to intuitively know how it works or what I'm going to use it for.
Right.
I,
Yeah, totally.
I
But I think
can,
this is I think you're right about also knowing how you learn and then making sure that you're giving yourself goals against that. I feel like you can process yourself to death of like, well, I should get certifications and I should sort of get all this stuff before I start diving in. So if you're process oriented, great, find yourself a good sort of course, but give yourself like little snackable goals of like all I'm gonna do is I just want to stand up an ugly website by myself. You know what I mean? Like, and no one needs to see it. It doesn't even need to look good, doesn't even, but just give yourself little things where you are sort of like achieving these little milestones that you're going towards so you can see that progress. Because if you're just doing learning, then you're not going to get the satisfaction also of the real learning is the hands-on of just making something ugly and wrong
yeah,
and doing that a bunch of times.
exactly. Do you remember a tool called Interwoven or Team Site? Interwoven Team Site was a tool that companies were using to develop websites.
No, that's funny
Okay.
because I had a company called Woven Interactive at some point.
Oh, that's so funny.
But no.
So when I was working at one of my companies, we used this tool. And at the time, I was a webmaster, believe it or not. I
That
created
term, so
websites.
good.
I was a webmaster for 17
Yeah.
websites with internal websites within my
Oh, right.
company. And so
Yeah.
I got involved in a lot of technology conversations. And
Hmm.
one of the things that I had to like tell people is like, listen, on these websites, it takes 17 clicks. 17, I counted them to make an
Yep.
update. 17 clicks to make just an update to the website. So I had to teach people how to use this thing. And I think what it did is it made me so like into technology and the challenging of technology and understanding the connectivity. And that was like in 2006.
Right.
I was doing this. 2004, like it was way back when I was involved in technology. So now when all this technology comes out, this new AI stuff, it's like I'm hungry for it. I'm like I'm ready. I'm like what next? And I think like having that excitement around what's possible. Maybe that's one of
Right.
the other ingredients. It's like get excited about what's possible and how
Yep.
you can bring all of these things together so that you can create the stack that you need for your business.
And the mindset. I think when people say I'm worried about, or if people are thinking or ruminating, I'm worried AI is going to take my job. You only have to be sort of worried about that if you're basically standing still and just watching the news and watching how stuff is happening and just crossing your fingers like AI is not going to take my job. But if you're diving into it, like Claude Code, a good example, that's not just for coding. Like you literally can stand it up and start asking it questions and coming up with plans and dropping a spreadsheet and being like, I want you to figure this out for the next 5 years. And if you can start to do that, you can ask Claude Code to build you an agent that I just did one yesterday that I was like, I have a website I'm working on and I want you to go through it and look at every page on every device size and give me a report on what's wrong with it. That's not necessarily coding. That's just getting this little task by this smart little thing to go do a thing for me that I would have to normally go on Fiverr or Upwork and like interview people and hire
Yeah.
people or whatever. And
Wow.
so by getting into Claude Code, like just trying to erase the barriers of like, this is for engineers building large software. It's not like you can stand it up and just ask it questions. And it's actually gotten smart enough that you can be like, can you tell me how to tell you what I want? And it'll tell you. So, if you can practice with this stuff at times and not worry like you're going to break it, but just do it, you'll start to unlock these things that have you kind of insulating yourself or teaching yourself skills that you're going to be able to teach other people in your organization. And then you become the one who are like, oh, we got to put that person on it because they now know these things versus worrying about where it's headed. Just start swimming in the stream. And once you start picking up these things, you won't worry about stuff like that anymore.
Yeah, I love this. So tell us, Kyle, how does this all connect to what you're doing right now?
Yeah, I think I've enjoyed looking at things at a macro level and also to your point, I think when you brought up sort of, user experience or human experience, what is it like interacting with these tools or there's a great field called human computer interaction, how do you build an ATM that's simple enough that anyone can use it? And when I start backing up and look at things, there was with Stacklist kind of came from an idea that my wife and I were on a date in 2017. And we were talking about the fact that, you know, when people would say, hey, we're coming to New York to visit, where should we go? If you actually sit for a second and do that from whatever city you're at, just let your mind run on how would you aggregate all the places or restaurants or coffee shops or experiences or how would you aggregate all of that and send it to somebody? All of a sudden your brain's like, oh my gosh, this sounds like I have to sit down and write a Google Doc or I have to like do an email with like 50 links and like there's not really a good place to aggregate all that in one place and then quickly share it with somebody else. And so we started building stack lists first for the consumer that you can just dump any link, whether it's like a Lego set my son wants, or like this great little pastry shop in the Lower East Side that we love that we don't want to forget, or this place in Sicily that somebody told me about. And I'm not going to Sicily anytime soon, but I want to just stick that somewhere that's not in a random Mac note or like I'm not starring it in Chrome on my desktop, which I will never find again. You're sort of aggregating all the things that you curate in your life in one place. And then once you've got that, now you can just have a profile. If you actually go to stacklist.app/Kyle, you've got my books and my movies and my favorite Atlanta restaurants and my New York stuff, my podcast. Now I've just got one link it's sort of like the front door for how Kyle
Mm.
curates his life. And I love that because it feels like the antidote to things like Instagram, which are, hey, look at me, I'm in a restaurant, I'm eating this delicious burger. But really, in that instance, what I'm doing is I'm just trying to capture eyeballs and attention for the algorithm. I'm not actually sending you the burger or the location. And with Stacklist, I'm actually sending you the actual thing I love, and I'm trying to share that with you. And I think that
Yeah.
makes a really interesting curation economy.
Mm. So what should people think about when they're looking at stack lists? Someone like me, what would you tell me to use stack lists for?
Pick you Everyone is known for something. Not like take business out. Everyone's known for something in their social circles. Bill's the guy that has the best lawn equipment ever, and he obsesses about it, right? And Sue is a runner and has the best running equipment. Someone knows the best podcasts for business. Just think about that and how interesting it would be if you put your favorite stuff in there. And when you're at a party and someone goes, "What have you been up to these days?" You're like, "Oh my gosh, I just started learning how to solve a Rubik's cube, and I actually put together." Both the Rubik's cubes that I found for purchase, but also the TikTok and YouTube videos I learned with, and I can just text that to you. It's really magic when you have all these things that you're excited about and that you want to
Mm.
share with other things, which are literally just like you could text it to somebody. So take your favorite two or three of your favorite topics and just like make a stack. And then the first time you send it to somebody, the recipient's usually like, "Oh, wow, okay. That's cool." I've never had anybody send something like that.
All right. Well, you know what I want from you, Kyle?
Yep.
I would like your stack list on my tech stack, like what I should be using for
Nice.
my business. What is the tech stack that I should be using based on all of your amazing knowledge? Do you have
Yeah.
that yet? Do you have it?
Let's do it. I have our tech stack and what we use, but I think what'll be interesting is like I could put together for you what I think would be the lightweight operating system for, for reducing your $2,000 a month down to like, 500 a month or something like that and get it to a place where it is streamlined and organized, but you also hopefully you save 15% mental overhead and time. So
Yep.
yeah, we could do that.
That would be super fun. Kyle, where can my audience find out more about you?
Stacklist.app/Kyle. That is me in a nutshell.
I love it. I love it. Any final words for the audience today, Kyle?
Just be open. Be open, be curious. Don't worry you're gonna like go down the wrong path or explore the wrong thing. Just, keep an outlook on both life and career like it's one big lab experiment. Just try lots of experiments. And even if it's does you thought would, you're still gathering the insights, how to experiment, and just little by little, you're going to get better and better and better.
Thank you so much, Kyle, for being a guest on the Stay on Course podcast.
Thank you.